Hi there. Welcome back to the Out of the Cave podcast with Lisa Schlossberg. I'm your host, Lisa Schlossberg, a licensed social worker, certified health coach, personal trainer, and yoga instructor. If you, like I have, struggle with your relationship with food, eating, and body image, I am here with this podcast to guide you into healing the relationship you have with yourself through a trauma-informed, holistic, and mind-body-soul approach. Together, we can support you in building a lifestyle of more peace, freedom, safety, and power. Hello again. Welcome back to the Out of the Cave podcast. This is me, your host, Lisa Schlossberg. And today we are going to continue the conversation. This is what I have in my head as chapter 3. But as I mentioned last time, we're going to stay on brand where I have some follow-up thoughts about chapter 2 that we need to discuss before we dive in. So welcome back. And I feel like the only thing I really want to say before I get into it is if you haven't listened to the last couple episodes, please go in order, or some of these I'm building on what came before it. So that's all you need to really know. Those of you that have been listening, welcome back. And we're going to continue the conversation. The first thing on my mind, or that I've been thinking about and kind of laughing to myself about over the last couple of weeks as I've been creating these and giving a voice to all of this, is a really good example of the kind of inner conflict, or I don't even know that I would call it that, but kind of like what I keep talking about, where I get some clear guidance and direction of like where I'm supposed to go and what I should be doing, and it's not something that I want to do. And then there's that split in me. That's why I think about conflict. Like there's the part of me that knows what I'm supposed to be doing. Then there's the part of me that resists it or fights it or doesn't want to. And I think about these podcast episodes as like, honestly, almost like an example of that, where I truly believe there's so much, as I keep saying, that I want to share. And as I sit with all my notes, it just grows and grows and grows. And I don't know how long this solo series will go on for. And there's a part of me that's like, oh, this is so much work to like sit and think about and reflect on and write my notes and organize my thoughts and then carve out the time to like record and be in the right energy for it. And like, this is such a commitment that I've made to myself, because the only thing at the end of the day, the only thing worse than showing up to do it is not doing it. And that is, to me, again, like this spiritual lifestyle is at a certain point, it becomes so, in my experience, it has become so like intolerable to live in a place of, I know what I'm supposed to be doing and I'm not doing it. And if that means that I have to carve out all this time and do all this work for what? I don't get paid to create this podcast. I don't get paid for what goes into it. Like, this is part of my job and it's my work. But why? Because I need to do it. Because I just need to do it. I am being guided to do it. And so I have faith. I hope that it means something to someone other than me and that it helps someone and that there's, larger, bigger reasons for it. But right now, I'm just thinking about how like I'm, all alone in my little room doing my little thing, not knowing at all where this is going to go or what it leads to. And I just keep having to show up. And this is what I mean. This is like such a, make it really meta example of so much of what I'm talking about here. So anyway, I find that cute and funny. All right. So having said all of that, here we are. Welcome back. The first thing of all the things that I want to talk about today is, I listened to the last one and I thought, as someone especially who's listening to these episodes that is relatively new to this work, there are some things I want to clarify, because I realized that I'm talking about acceptance a lot, accepting ourselves to alleviate suffering, being in acceptance of our behaviors while also wanting to change them, radical acceptance as the beginning of ultimately the foundation that we need for transformation to happen. And so I'm listening to this and I'm like, you know what? Acceptance and how to practice acceptance and what acceptance really is something that when I'm in my group coaching program or at retreats and things like that, is something that I actually need to teach and explain, because a lot of people have confusion around it, or there's just a lot of like myths and misunderstandings about what acceptance is and isn't. And so we're going to do that today. We're going to go into that kind of sidebar, which who knows, could be half the episode, because there's a lot of important things to say about it. So I want to start there around what is acceptance? What does it actually mean for you to be in quote unquote radical acceptance of what is? And I will start this, let's say, section with the quote that comes that you've heard it before. I know Nicole Sachs talks about this a lot. It is Danielle LaPorte's original quote, that is, transformation begins with the radical acceptance of what is. Transformation begins with the radical acceptance of what is. So what we're saying here ultimately is, if you want something to change, transformation, what we first have to do is be accepting of what is right here, right now. Another quote that I share in my coaching program is about the paradoxical theory of change, which to me ultimately says the same thing, but if you like this language better, maybe it will land. Briefly stated, it is this. The paradoxical theory of change is this. Change occurs when one becomes what he is, not when he tries to become what he is not. Change does not take place through a coercive attempt by the individual or by another person to change him, but it does take place if one takes the time and effort to be what he is, to be fully invested in his current positions. By rejecting the role of change agent, we make meaningful and orderly change possible. By rejecting the role of change agent, we make meaningful and orderly change possible. So it's all saying the same thing. It's the paradox. The paradoxical theory of change is that if you want something to be different, if you want to change, the first step is be exactly where you are as you are right now. It does not happen when you try to make a coercive attempt, you or someone else. In order for change to happen, you first have to be fully invested in your current position. You got to be where you are. So let's take a second to unpack that and discuss this. What usually happens, think about it. Use this as an opportunity. Don't just listen to me. Connect with yourself. Okay? When you hear me say that in order for you to make changes and go where you want to go, you first have to be exactly where you are right now. You have to feel exactly how you feel right now. You have to be in your body as it is right now. What comes up for you? What happens in your thought process? What happens in your body? What emotions come up? Usually, if you're anything like me, anyway, when I suggest that in order for you to make change happen, you first have to be where you are, the most common response or reaction to that I receive is, but I don't like where I am. But I don't want to be where I am. But it's not good here. It's not fun here. It doesn't feel good here. I don't want to be where I am. I don't want to have to accept this. And that is why we need to talk about what acceptance is and is not. Because the truth is, I've seen a lot of people confuse accepting something with liking something. And that's why you're not actually in acceptance, which means you can't actually make changes. So we need to clarify a couple things. Accepting something. Acceptance is not approval. Acceptance is not agreement. Acceptance is not resignation. So if you have the belief system that if you accept something, it means that you are approving it or agreeing with it, that's just not what acceptance is. Agreement is agreement. Approval is approval. Resignation is resignation. Acceptance is acceptance. And I will tell you what acceptance is, but first we have to start with what it's not. And so this is what I see happen very often, is that first we have to be in acceptance of what is in order to make change. But if we can't get to be in acceptance of what is because we have all these beliefs about what acceptance is, then the fears come up, right? That if I accept myself as I am, then nothing will ever change. It's very similar to the myths around self-compassion, because tender self-compassion is accepting ourselves. And so the myths that come up are, if I accept myself as I am, then I'll never make a change. When the truth is, the paradoxical theory of change, the quicker you can accept yourself where you are as you are, the quicker you'll actually make change. And now this is why I love and appreciate Dr. Kristin Neff's work so much, because it's been studied. Now we have research to back it up. That's just how it works. Okay, so agreement is not approval, resignation, or agreement. Acceptance is acceptance. And I genuinely think the most simple, this is not, again, none of this is easy, but it's all very simple. I think the simplest way to define what acceptance actually is that you're not fighting it. You're not fighting it. You're not in resistance, right? So if I say, be fully invested in your current position, be exactly where you are as you are, and your immediate reaction to that is, but I don't want to be. The first thing you need to know is that's super valid. You don't have to want to be. And if you, especially if you are in pain, if you are in discomfort, and I say be where you are, of course you don't want to be there. I know you don't want to be there. But the reason that we are suggesting you hang out there for a minute is so that you can get out of it. It is the first step. Transformation begins with the acceptance of what is. So you just have to know. You don't have to like it, agree with it, etc. You just have to be willing to tolerate it. And so again, I'm gonna say a little bit more about how to define acceptance and how to practice it actually on a physiological level, so you can really do it and integrate it. But you need to know that what it really is not fighting it, okay, and not being in resistance. What we resist persists. Right? It's like the opposite side of transformation begins with the radical acceptance of what is. And if we keep resisting what is, then it persists. And there's also that great quote about, you can fight reality. You can fight reality, but you'll lose 100% of the time. Like, it's kind of like that. So it's important to know that you're allowed to say, I don't like it, I don't want it, but at the same time, you want to think about, if your reaction to being where you are right now is immediate resistance, I refuse to be where I am right now. That is the problem. That's the biggest problem that you want to pay attention to. So again, how do we navigate this then? If you are in a situation, if you are in, again, a body that has chronic pain symptoms, if you are in a body that is morbidly obese and hard to move around in, if you are uncomfortable with any kind of situation, relationship, whatever it is, this applies to literally all things. If you are in relationship to it, where you refuse to be present with it, and you refuse to tell the truth about it, that is keeping you stuck. So how do you do it? How do you shift out of being in resistance to your current position and actually shift into radical acceptance of what is? So here's the thing. I told you what acceptance is not. Let's talk about what it is. The way that I have found it helpful in my own understanding and practice of this is to think about acceptance being synonymous with tolerance. The question is not, do you like it or do you want it? It's not that you not wanting it or not liking it doesn't matter. It's just those are separate, because they don't actually get in the way of you practicing acceptance or embodying acceptance, which again, those are two different things. So the question is not, do you like it or you want it, or do you agree with it or do you approve of it? I know that you don't. I know that you don't like it or want it or agree with it or approve of it. And you're also not resigning to it. That's, again, the question is, are you willing to tolerate it? Are you willing to tolerate it? And this can be true mentally with your thoughts, right? If you have a thought that makes you feel uncomfortable, the question is not, do you like that thought? Do you want to be thinking this? No. The question is just, are you willing to tolerate the fact that you already are thinking this? It's already happening. The same is true with feelings, right? I know you don't want to feel this way. I know you don't like feeling this way. the question is, are you willing to tolerate the fact that you are already feeling this way? Can you just tolerate it? And I think about it similar to, if someone that I really didn't like showed up at a party I was at, it's like, if I'm spending the whole night talking about and thinking and feeling how much I really don't like that this person is here and how much I really didn't want them to come, and, I don't approve of the situation, well, then my whole night is ruined. But if I can practice acceptance, that is, I don't like it, and I didn't want this to happen, and I don't approve of this, and it is what it is. It is happening. I'm not fighting it. I'm not resisting it. I'm not trying to control it or change it. Right? This and this is why I wanted to talk more about this, is because I can imagine there's confusion, right? It's like, well, you're saying don't try to change it for the sake of eventually changing it. Like, we have to be, but that's exactly the point, is you want to think also with acceptance about the long game. Is if we have to reject the role of change agent, that's a temporary position. It's not to say that we never get back into taking action. We do. That's what the fear self-compassion is about, taking action. But again, it's like an order of operations thing. And I've said this before about intuitive eating. It's like, I think about PEMDAS, right? First, you have to do the parentheses, and then the exponents, and then the multiply and divide, and then the subtract and add and subtract. You have to go in a certain order. And if you go in the wrong order, you get the wrong answer. But it's not because the components are different or wrong or bad. It's the order that we need to pay attention to. So transformation begins with the radical acceptance of what is. You want to look at that as like the starting line. That's just the first thing you have to do. That's the first step, is the tender self-compassion and the radical acceptance. And then once you embody that, and I will tell you how to do that. So again, this is, a lot of you can understand this as a theory or a concept, like it makes sense. But what's missing, I find over and over again in this conversation, is you don't know how to actually do it. You don't know how to integrate it so that you're actually embodied in it, which is, again, the first step. So that's the thing, is you want to embody it first, and then you can hold on to a knowing that it's kind of a temporary position. It doesn't mean fake it. It doesn't mean, like you like you have to be genuine in the temporary releasing of the role of change agent, so you can eventually pick it back up in a way that feels safe to the mind-body system. Okay? So acceptance is not resisting. Acceptance is not fighting it. Acceptance is lay the weapons down, let it be true, because again, it already is. It already is. If you want to practice radical acceptance of something that you're thinking, feeling, experiencing, moving through, it's because it's already happening. So all you're doing really with radical acceptance as a practice is aligning with the truth. What you're doing is just coming out of like a denial and a fighting of what is. So how do you do it on a physical, somatic level? So again, you're not just understanding it, you are actually embodied in it. Here's what I want you to pay attention to. Let's go back to this experiment where, take a deep breath. If you're listening to this, take a deep breath. And notice again what happens when I say, be exactly where you are right now. Be in the body that you're in, be at the weight that you're at, whatever it is, just be exactly where you are. Now, notice what happens. Probably, likely, resistance, fear, wanting to fight it, wanting to control it, wanting to change it. Notice that. That's okay. Again, of course you don't like it. Of course you don't want to be here. I know that. That's okay. Allow that. Allow that to happen. Now, here's what I want you to really pay attention to if you want things to shift. Notice what happens in your body. Probably, again, some contraction. Maybe you start feeling that fight or flight. You want to run from it because it sucks and it's uncomfortable, or you want to fight against it because it sucks and it's uncomfortable. Notice what's happening physiologically. And also realize in this moment, as a reminder, you've heard this many times if you listen to this podcast, you are uncomfortable. You are not unsafe. You are uncomfortable in your body. You are not unsafe in your body. You are uncomfortable in this current situation. You are not unsafe in it. Okay? So from there, here's the thing for you to practice, and you can practice this right now. Notice again what happens in your body, the contraction, the fight, flight kind of symptoms, and breathe. Practice releasing some of that and aligning your physiology, which is to say, bringing the energy of safety into your body. Align your physiology with the truth. That is, you are safe. You don't have to fight. You don't have to flee. You can be here right now and say, wow, this is uncomfortable to look at. I really don't like it. I really don't approve of it. I really don't agree with it. And I am willing to be here. I'm willing to tolerate how uncomfortable this makes me feel for the sake of my own healing, for the sake of things being different, for the sake of me changing something. I'm willing to tolerate where and how I am right here, right now. And here's the thing for you to practice that matters the most is what happens in your body. Because if you react to your current position with fight or flight, if you react as though it is unsafe, your system will continue to feel as though it's running from a predator. And again, how far do you think you're going to get? This is why physiologically, radical acceptance is the beginning of transformation, because you have to get the predator out of the room. And if you are fighting and resisting, trying to control and manage because you just cannot tolerate it, your brain will continue to think that you're in life-threatening danger. And if you are in life-threatening danger, you cannot make healthy, sustainable changes. That's just it. And so I'm not even necessarily talking right now only about weight. What I'm talking about is everything. So this is what you want to practice is, again, notice your body likely starts taking on this like fighting energy or fear energy or control energy, which is all kind of the same resistance. And what you can practice is bringing in the energy of safety to your mind-body system. So you find your breath. You breathe into the sensations, you release some of the contraction, and you can practice mindfulness. Notice that you are safe right now by activating your 5 senses. Feel your feet on the ground, feel your breath move through your body. Slow yourself down a little bit, because when you can integrate shifting the energy in your body, what you're doing is communicating to your whole mind-body system that you are safe to be here right now. And it's not going to be enough, because I've seen this over and over and over again. It's not enough to just understand radical acceptance as an idea. You really need, especially those of you that have been doing this work for so long and you understand how to talk about radical acceptance. The question is it embodied? Is this an actual embodied practice, an actual embodied energy in your system? And if it's not, that's what you want to pay attention to. And so I also think about the distinction here between wanting and needing. Okay, so it's okay if you want your thoughts and feelings to go away or be different than they are. It's okay that you want to feel differently, look differently, behave differently. Again, you're a human being. Of course you do. That's fine. But what radical acceptance is about is when you, again, embody the energy that you're safe to be here right now. You may not be comfortable to be here, but you're safe to be here. What you're doing is communicating to your brain that you don't need things to be different. You don't need your feelings to go away. You don't need your thoughts to be different. You don't need your body to be different. You don't need this to happen urgently, immediately. That's what matters. So it's okay for you to say, I want this to be different. Sure. But you can also be clear with yourself. You don't, in a survival mechanism kind of way, need it to be different. And I've said this before on this pod, I'm sure. About the same is true, like specifically with our weight. It's okay for you to say, I want to lose weight. But as soon as you start telling yourself, I need to lose weight, the way that you have to, again, we have to consider that there's an animal brain listening to everything we're saying. And it believes what you say. It believes what you tell it. And so when you say, and the thing about the animal brain is it's based on survival. It's only thinking about, is this going to keep you safe or put you in danger? And so when we say, I need to lose weight, it's kind of like your brain hears that and is like, you need your body to be different right here, right now, the same way that you need food and water and oxygen to survive. You need it. And then we buy into this sense of urgency. I need to lose weight. I need to lose X amount of pounds by this day. And this especially comes up with doctors, right? I need to lose weight. My doctor told me. And again, that can be true. It can be true that weight loss will support your health, let's say, but it still isn't a need in the immediate urgent sense of the word. And that's where, again, it shifts the energy internally. So if you say, I want to lose weight, notice how that feels compared to I need to lose weight. So it's very similar with something like radical acceptance, where it's like, I want to lose weight. Okay, sure. You want your body to be different. You want your behaviors around food to be different. That's down the line. The first question is, can you be here right now? Which is, you can probably tell the first step of fierce self-compassion is, I'm willing to look at this. I'm willing to tell the truth about this. I'm not brushing this under the rug. I'm not running away. This is the truth. It may be uncomfortable. I may not like it, but I'm willing to look at it and not fight it. And that, again, is not just, from the neck up. That has to happen in the body. And so what you're going for is to say, I'm in my present moment experience, in my body, at my weight, and feel safe to be here. Not comfortable to be here, safe to be here. Because the truth is, you are. The truth is, you are. You are here right now. You are surviving right now. You are safe in a animal brain sense of the word. And that is what we need to be connected to, because again, it's just truth. It's truth. And the last thing I think for now that I'll say about this is the way that I talk about the brain and understand the brain, especially when it comes to acceptance and all things, is I think about it like a child. It's like a scared, hypersensitive child. And what happened? Let's say you're the adult in the room, right? And you're hanging out with this scared, hypersensitive child. And all of a sudden, you kind of like look up, you see something really scary, and you just start running away. What is the scared child going to do? The scared child is just going to run in the direction that you're running in. It's not going to look around and be like, what are we so afraid of? What are we running from? It's not going to look around for evidence that we need to be running. It's just going to see you running, and it's going to go in the same direction. And that's wise, because you're the adult in the room and it trusts you to move in a direction that it also needs to move in. But the same is also true with the brain. And so I'm saying this because if you are immediately reacting to where you are right now, specifically, again, if we're looking at your body or your weight, if your immediate reaction to that is, I cannot be here, I cannot tolerate this, I refuse to let this be true, then your brain body system is going to run with that. It's going to move in that direction of, it's not safe to be here. How do we know it's not safe to be here? She just told us it's not safe to be here. We can't be here. We can't be here. We got to get out of here. And that's what comes up again so often with the body stuff, is there's this feeling of, if I tell the truth about and accept where I am, I have to get out of here. I cannot tolerate this. I cannot be here. And then again, it's like you are the adult in the room, just like running in a direction, and all your brain body system knows how to do is follow you. It believes your conscious input. And so that's why I think it's important to talk about all of this, because so many of us don't even know that it's happening. Like, that's the thing, is that so much of this is just mindless. And not mindless in a negative way. It's just, it's not on our radar. We're not conscious that this is what's happening. And so I think over and over again, I just see people who feel so stuck and they don't know why, especially they've been doing this work for years. And it's like, because this stuff isn't happening. You're not like integrating this. And again, to no fault of your own, how would you know how to do this? But that's why it feels important for me to like break it down step by step by step. Because again, now think about it this way. Instead of being the adult that looks around and sees something they don't like and sees something uncomfortable or starts feeling uncomfortable, instead of running away, if you look at that thing, which is to say maybe your body or yourself or your behaviors or whatever it is, and you are able to say, wow, this is uncomfortable. This is confronting. This, some of the things that I've said in my own experience, this feels like a slap in the face. This feels like whatever it is. If you are willing to just say, this is really uncomfortable and I really don't like it and I really don't want it and I don't need to run away from it, I can sit here. I have the strength to look at this and tell the truth about this. Your brain body system is on board with that, because your conscious input becomes, I'm uncomfortable about my current position, but I'm not unsafe. And then your brain body system is like, oh, so we don't have to run away like a predator? No, you might want to, and that's really valid because this sucks. And also, we don't need to. You don't need to run away. You don't need to change it. You don't need to control it. You don't need to manage it. I know that you want to run away. You want to control it. You want all of those things. That's valid. And we're going to just stay here. And so that's why all of this matters to me so much, because you have a lot of power. You have a lot of power in how you talk to yourself, in how you look at and perceive your own situations. And the thing that gets in the way of embodied acceptance constantly is reacting to our what is, in the quote of acceptance of what is. We react to what is as though it's a predator, as though it's life-threatening. And then we're running away from it. And then we can't get anywhere. We can't be in the first step of fierce self-compassion, which is all about taking action. We can't be taking action if we're not first willing to be exactly where we are, and not just be exactly where we are, but most importantly, to feel safe to be exactly where we are. It's not enough to say, I'm willing to be where I am, but I feel like I'm going to fucking die. That's nope. Now you're running from a predator, and that predator is going to stay with you as you try to make changes. What has to happen is an embodied understanding, an embodied knowing, an embodiment of the truth that is, you are safe to be where you are as you are. And then you don't run away, and then you stay present, and then you can make change. So I know that this is probably extremely redundant, but it feels really, really important that this is clear so you can see step by step, again, how this works. So all in all, what I'm saying is allow yourself to say, I don't like it, I don't want it, I don't agree, I don't approve. Allow all of that. That emotional reaction is true, and at the same time, you are still safe to be here in this thing that you really don't like and really don't want, because that is where we can start to move, and we want to move. Now, having said all of that, here's the other piece of it, is let's talk about then you accepting yourself and then accepting behaviors. So we've talked about the fact that you are not your behaviors. You are you, the spirit, the soul, the being that lives in your body. Cool. You are you. Your behaviors are your behaviors. So now the complication becomes, what do I mean when I actually talk about, like I said in the previous episode, we want to accept ourselves unconditionally, but we don't want to accept our behaviors. And now, ultimately, what I'm saying to you is accept your behaviors. So again, I imagine that if I were listening to this, I'd be like, well, that sounds a little contradictory. Like, which one is it? So I want to break that down. It's very similar to kind of what I was just saying, which is you want to radically accept what is, knowing that it's the first step. It's not the entire process. It's the first step. And so when I talk about accept your behaviors, what I'm talking about is ultimately not, again, fighting it, resisting it, denying it, pushing it away, like those kinds of things. Because again, if you're in a place where you are behaving in a way that doesn't serve you or actually hurts or harms you, and you are refusing then to practice acceptance of them, then you're getting in the way of you being able to change them. So when I say accept your behaviors, I mean, again, just don't fight it. Just tell the truth about it. Exactly like I was saying on the previous episode, like when you hurt and harm yourself, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay that you did that. That, again, to me, if you want a framework of like what radical acceptance is and how to practice it, to me, it's those two words. It's okay. It's okay. It is. And like really, truly, not in a brush it under the rug kind of way, but in a I'm telling the truth kind of way. It is what it is. It is what it is. It did happen. I did do that. It's okay. That's radical acceptance of what is, specifically as it relates to your behaviors. I did do that thing. I'm uncomfortable about my behavior. I'm not unsafe because of my behavior, at least most of the time, right? In the cases where that is true. So that's what we're talking about here is first accepting your behaviors so that you can change them, which is why there's space in my world, there is space to say accepting our behaviors and also not accepting our behaviors. So it's this kind of, I don't even want to say balance. It's really more like a duality of accepting the behavior in terms of not resisting it or denying it, and then also being in a place of saying, I accept myself and I accept what I've done. And at the same time, I don't unconditionally accept that I'm behaving this way. I want to do something about it. Like all of that can exist at the same time. They're not mutually exclusive. But again, I think it's important to understand the order of operations. That is because if we say that you don't accept that you behave a certain way, now all of a sudden, again, it's like there's a predator in the room. So by you saying, okay, it's okay that this happened, it's okay that I did this thing, what you're really doing is just kind of getting one predator out of the room so you can figure out where the exit is, so you can actually take action, so you can make changes. But if you're fighting it or judging it, right, that if all of what I talked about in the last episode isn't happening, if you're not being kind, compassionate, loving, understanding, empathetic towards yourself about your behaviors, it can feel physiologically, whether you're aware of this, conscious of this or not, it can feel like, again, it's life-threatening. It can feel like there's a predator in the room. It just so happens you're the predator. So we're accepting the behavior not because you like it. You're not accepting your behaviors because you want to be behaving this way. I know you don't want to be behaving this way. You know you don't want to be behaving this way. That's not the question. So you're accepting it, not because you like it or want it, but because it's already happening. What you're doing is aligning with reality, which again is not a small thing if what you're used to doing, very much like I used to do, is just live in denial and live in avoidance. Like, yeah, I know I do that thing, but I don't want to look at it. I don't want to pay any attention to it. This is where you start to really ultimately take your power back so you can actually change the things you want to change. So you're accepting it, not because you like or want it, but because it's already happening. You're accepting the behavior because you're already engaging in it. Think about this. You're accepting the behavior because you're already engaging in it. So you aligning with that is, again, aligning with the truth. And ultimately, the truth is, it is okay. It is okay. It's not killing you that you're using food to stuff your emotions down. Not in the immediate sense of the word, anyway. So it's okay. It's okay. So that is radical acceptance and how to actually do it. Okay. If you have any follow-up questions, please let me know. Here are some quotes. Now I want to go back to, you can see, I have faith that you can see at this point, after the last few episodes, this is where tenderness and fierceness, again, become integrated, where they become kind of, they're working together. It's this duality of, I can be where I am right now, and I want it to be different. And I'm just going to say, this is why I think a lot of the pushback that I will receive around something like intentional weight loss, or the people that say that all intentional weight loss is the same as dieting, is because fundamentally we believe different things. What I believe is it is totally possible for you to be in acceptance of where you are and moving in the direction of where you want to go. It's totally possible, in my experience, to say, I know that I'm safe where I am, and I could be a little bit more comfortable if I change some things. You can have both of those at the same time. But a lot of people, it seems, still just have a very black and white way of thinking, where what I've heard very specifically is, if you are trying to change your body, it means you aren't in acceptance of where you are right now. Or if you want to lose weight, it means, you hate your body the way it is, or you don't like your body the way it is. And you can't possibly practice acceptance of what is while also trying to change it. And what I've realized at this point is we just have fundamentally different belief systems because I don't believe that. I think it's totally possible. But the thing that, again, I think is missing from this conversation over and over again is we're not looking at the embodiment piece. We're not looking at the state of the nervous system piece. We're not looking at, if someone says you can't be in acceptance of where you are and still working towards something to be different, which is to say you can't possibly be accepting of your body as it is while trying to lose weight. To me, it's just like, first of all, then you just don't know what that means. You just don't know what that means physiologically, somatically, because if I'm in acceptance of my body, which is to say, invitation, by the way, to scroll back on my Instagram for, I don't know when these videos started coming out, but when I started doing the kind of like mirror work stuff, I was showing that I can sit in front of the mirror as I am with my, the like rolls and fat and whatever I see on my own body. And it doesn't create a reaction in me. I feel safe to be exactly where I am in my body as it is. And it's not just an understanding that I am safe. It's a physiological embodiment of the energy of safety. I feel safe in my body as it is, in all the things I see when I look in the mirror. I'm not always comfortable about what I look like. I don't always like what I look like. I don't always want to look the way that I look, but I feel safe seeing myself and my appearance. And again, you want to see videos about that, go to my Instagram. But the reason, again, I'm saying this is because some of what I shared in those videos is that energy and that embodiment was the foundation for me to now, I've lost like 40 pounds since then, in a way that feels really easy, as you've probably heard on this podcast already, and I will say a lot more about in this series. But it's like, you don't get to tell me that if I want to lose weight, I'm not accepting of my body, because I know what happens in my own nervous system when I look in the mirror. I know that I'm in acceptance of my body because I feel safe to be here as I am right now. And from that foundation, again, from that first step, from that starting line, I've also been able to very intentionally lose weight because I wanted it to be different. So some of what I'm saying to you is, if you have also been indoctrinated with that kind of belief system of, if you're trying to lose weight, it means you hate yourself, or you don't like your body, or you're not in acceptance. Or if you accept yourself where you are, it means necessarily that you don't want things to be different. What I'm doing is giving you a permission slip to say, I don't actually believe that. Because you don't have to believe that. Listen, if you believe that, you believe that, and that's totally valid. But if you don't believe that, that's also valid. And I think about, there are other scenarios where this might be true, because sometimes, when it comes to our bodies, it can be really hard to see straight because we have so much stuff around that. But I think about like money, for example. It's like, you can say to yourself, if you're fortunate and privileged enough to say stuff like this, where you can say, I am where I am in terms of my income, in terms of my money, my jobs, my bills, my whatever. When it comes to money, it's like you can say, now things are okay the way they are, and I would like to make more, or I would like to save more, right? It's like, in that sense, you can see how there's a possibility to say things are fine the way they are, but I also want them to improve. I want them to get better. I want to be more comfortable, right? I'm safe where I am, and I want more comfort. You can say the same thing about your body. All right, so all of that being said, what I want to talk a little bit more about is the integration of the tenderness and the fierceness. Because again, it's this accepting ourselves to alleviate suffering. And that hand in hand, that's the tender self-compassion, and that hand in hand with the fierce self-compassion, taking action to alleviate suffering. Now we can alleviate a lot of suffering, like I said. So here's some fire flames quotes from the Queen, Dr. Kristin Neff, that I want you to consider, especially as it comes to your body. Tenderness without fierceness becomes complacency. Fierceness without tenderness becomes hostile and aggressive. So let's talk about this for a second. Tenderness without fierceness becomes complacency. A lot of people have experienced that. If what you're doing is accepting yourself, accepting your behaviors, accepting the way you feel, listen, that is important. That needs to happen, especially if you want to strengthen the relationship you have with yourself. Tenderness is important. However, tenderness without fierceness becomes complacency. Now, you're not taking action. You're not changing anything. You're not moving. You're not doing anything different. So tenderness is important, but it's not going to get you where you want to go. Truth is, fierceness without tenderness, though, becomes hostile and aggressive. So now we have, if we're all fierce all the time and we're not tender, it becomes hostile and aggressive, not just to other people, but also, importantly, in our own internal family system with our parts. If we are fierce and we're always taking action and we always want to change things, but we are not willing to be where we are, it becomes hostile and aggressive. And for what it's worth, again, it doesn't feel safe. Now we're running away from ourselves because we can't be in ourselves with ourselves. So part of this is another quote, part of really becoming our true authentic selves is being able to claim both our fierce and tender side. We can accept ourselves unconditionally. We don't want to accept our behaviors unconditionally. And this is where we're going to start. This is, to me, in some ways, almost the intro to let's talk about what this means in your relationship with food. Let's talk about what this means in relationship to diet and anti-diet culture. But I'm getting there. I have to rein it in a little bit in terms of like, I'm going to dive right in. But we're laying foundation. Both energies are needed for inner healing and outer change. Okay, we've covered this. This is one of the things I really like about it. Consider this. Again, in your relationships with other people and your relationships with yourself. Fierceness allows us to say no. Tenderness in a way that maintains connection. Fierceness allows us to say no. Tenderness allows us to say no in a way that maintains connection. So it's not disrespectful, it's not cruel, it's not mean, it's not judgmental, right? It's fierce and bold and firm with the energy of protection of ourselves, of motivation,
of being on our own team, right? It's that mama bear kind of energy that can be really fierce, but when it's blended with tenderness, this is where like I've seen this a lot when people first start practicing setting boundaries and saying no and practicing this fierceness. Very often, innocently, it swings the pendulum to the other side. And now instead of setting boundaries with kindness and respect, and again, in a way that maintains connection, it becomes hostile and aggressive. It becomes this like really, it's just aggressive. Like that's what I've seen over and over again, where, you know, it becomes like you start doing this work on yourself and you start realizing that this and that doesn't work for you in this relationship and da da da. And then all of a sudden one day you get inspired and you set a boundary, and and what it sounds like is, you know, I've had enough of this, like fuck off once and for all. And it's like, that's your fierceness, and it's allowing you to say no, but it's lacking tenderness that allows you to maintain connection. And that's where I see this kind of go wrong again in our relationships, but also in our relationship with ourselves, where we're saying no, we can be hostile in our behavior change attempt because we're doing it from a place that doesn't maintain connection. We're not staying connected to our vulnerable parts, our fear, our resistance, ourselves, our inner child. We're not maintaining connection. We're exiling them out of the process so that we can move forward with change. And let me ask you something. How well has that been working? If at any point your fears and beliefs around self-compassion and radical acceptance come through and it's like, I'm not doing that, it'll never work. The question is that I do this to myself all the time. How well has your way been working for you? And if it's working for you, then go on and do that. But if it's not working for you, you want to be aware of that not practicing compassion and not practicing acceptance have not actually gotten you where you want to go. If you're listening to this, I have to believe that. Okay, so all of this being said, couple more points I want to make about this in regard specifically now to what this means regarding diet and anti-diet culture. The first and potentially most obvious is that I talk about, and I believe it's on the website. I've shared this. I know it's in my curriculum. I know it's at every retreat. I know the pendulum. I posted it. You've probably seen it. If you haven't and you want a copy of it, just email me and I'll send it to you. But the pendulum is, on one side, there's the eating and emotional eating and compulsive eating and all of that. And then we swing the pendulum. And on the other side, it's dieting and kind of like the hyperfixation on the food. And what I'm thinking about as I'm saying all of this is I think about the pendulum swinging between diet culture and anti-diet culture and what it means here through this lens. And I think that we can understand diet culture as fierceness without tenderness. It's hostile, it's aggressive, it feels hurtful and harmful, and it is. And it's not rooted, right? We're saying no. It's rooted in a lot of saying no. And again, not in a way that maintains connection to ourselves or our bodies, as we've discussed. So diet culture is like the fierceness without the tenderness. For a lot of people, swinging the pendulum into like anti-diet culture is like the tenderness without the fierceness. So now it's like diet culture was so bad and harmful and painful that I don't want to do anything like that. I'm not looking, and this is, I know that this is not the intention behind the anti-diet movement. I know that intuitive eating is not saying neglect your health. I know that's not what they're saying. But the way that it manifests for many people that I have worked with directly is that the pendulum swings to, literally anti-diet. I'm not paying attention to what I eat. I'm not looking at it. I'm not counting calories. I'm not counting macros. All of that stuff hurt me so bad that I refuse to pay attention. And then it becomes this tenderness without fierceness. That is, okay, eat what you want. Eat what you want, when you want, pay no attention. You're good. It's all okay. And it's so tender. I mean, I really actually don't think it is. I think it's very hostile in its own way, but I'll get there. It's almost like this tenderness without fierceness, where it's like it's all okay, don't worry about it, right? Don't stress yourself out, don't pay attention, don't make this hard on yourself. Just you're doing the best you can and it's all okay. It's all okay. And again, it is all okay and you are doing the best you can, but it's lacking fierceness. It's lacking the fierceness. And so it becomes complacency. And so this is just what I've seen over and over again in my own practice is a lot of people are coming in from diet culture indoctrinated with this fierceness that is actually hostile and aggressive because it's lacking tenderness. And then we swing the pendulum over to anti-diet where now it's so deep in tenderness without any fierceness that you're complacent. And it's like back and forth and back and forth. And so all of this to say that there is the possibility for the middle of the pendulum, which is what I've been saying for years, of having both, where, let's use again this language, fierceness allows us to say no, tenderness in a way that maintains connection. The middle of the pendulum, if what you want is really a lifelong approach to a sustainable, safe, stable relationship with food, that's what we need. We need fierceness. We need to feel safe being in our fierceness to say no to ourselves, to the parts of ourselves that want to engage in a behavior that is hurtful and harmful. We want to be able to say no to that. And we also need to deliver that in a way that is tender and nurturing and loving enough that we can say, things like, I love you too much to let you do this. I want to stay connected to you. You matter to me. Like all of this stuff, but that's what's getting missed in all of this from what I've seen. So that's why a lot of what I'm saying in these first few episodes are kind of leading me to talk about the experience of my own intentional weight loss over the last year. Because I know that if I'm embodied in everything that I'm talking to you about, which is accepting myself as I am to make changes where I want to go, I know how to do that. I have done that. I am doing that. And really, I just hope to inspire the knowing, the information, the intelligence, the education that it is possible. It is totally possible. It's not possible the way that we've done it in the past. It's not possible the way a lot of people are doing it, but it doesn't mean it's not possible. It just means we need a different approach. And that's what Out of the Cave is about. Now, one of the last things I'm going to say about this that I think is actually really important to clarify is let's talk about the rebel. This comes up a lot. When it comes to food and eating, our relationship with our parts and things like that. There's many people will tell me they have an inner rebel or they rebel against rules and structure and guidelines and things like that. They rebel against things like calories and macros and plans and meal prep, and there's a rebel in there. And so what a lot of people think, feel, believe, and in some cases have been taught is that they have a part, if we're using like parts work in IFS, they have a part that is a rebel. And I think this is actually fairly problematic. It doesn't work for me because what happens then is, as is what happens with labels and diagnoses, if you believe that you have, quote unquote, a rebel, it's kind of like, what's that quote about when you have a hammer, everything's a nail? It's like, you're gonna find your rebel because you've titled it a rebel and you believe that it's a rebel. And so anything you do, like, where's the rebel? Is the rebel here? Or like, oh, that's my rebel again. And it allows us to be kind of, again, mindless because it's not asking that part how it feels or what's going on with it or what it motivates it to behave this way. It's just saying, oh, it's the rebel doing what it does. And here's why this isn't helpful. Think about what a rebel is. The definition of rebellion, in my own understanding of it, I'm not even looking up the terms, I'm just going to tell you how I understand it, is you don't have a rebel unless you're rebelling against something. If there's nothing that you need to rebel against, you're not rebelling. So it's a reaction. It's necessarily a reaction. You're not just a rebel for no reason. You have to be by definition, if you are a rebel, what are you rebelling against? And maybe, you know, again, it's like, well, I'm just a rebel. I just rebel. And it's like, okay, okay. Well, let's look at that. So, if we're not going with just identifying a part as a rebel, you know, it's like one time I said to someone that I was feeling defensive. This is like a total sidebar, but this is what's coming to me right now. I was saying I feel defensive. And the person that I was talking to said, we only defend to the extent to which we feel attacked. We're only defensive if we feel attacked, right? It's the same kind of thing. You're only rebelling if you have something to rebel against. And so here's why I'm telling you all this. Because when it comes specifically to diet culture and anti-diet culture, and what, again, a lot of my clients have experienced, where it's like there's a rebel against dieting. There's a rebel against, you know, restriction and things like that. Instead of just understanding it as a rebel being a rebel, because that's what a rebel does, if we get curious about it, it's actually really wise and it's really smart. Because if diet culture was oppressive and harmful and hurtful and abusive, and part of you is rebelling against that, that's important. You want your rebel to rebel against oppressive systems. You want to fight back against something that is hurting you. You're not fighting, you're not rebelling against counting calories because counting calories is the problem. You're rebelling against counting calories because of what that did to you, about what that did to your life, about what that did to your mind-body disconnection. So we need a different narrative around this, because if you find that there's a part of you that's saying, no, I'm not doing this again, I'm not doing this any longer, it's coming, it can be coming very much from that fierce self-compassion mama bear energy that is, you're not putting me on a diet again. That hurt me. That harmed me. You don't get to harm me anymore. And so what I'm saying is, if you find yourself rebelling, having this big reaction of like, I'm never doing that stuff again, don't judge it. Don't pathologize it, because this could very really be, you know, again, that kind of fierce mama bear energy in you that is motivated by self-protection. You're protecting yourself against a system that hurts you. You should rebel against that. In some ways, this is the embodiment of self-love. The same way that you would, again, fight for the safety of your child, fight for the well-being of your child. If there is a system, institution, organization, belief system, paradigm, whatever it is that is limiting you, yeah, you want to rebel against that, because that's you fighting for yourself. And that's important to consider. If you weren't being abused and harmed, you wouldn't be rebelling against a system that's abusing and harming you. So we want that rebel on board. I'm not going to call it a rebel, but we want that energy on board, because to me, I understand that as your fierce self-compassion. But it brings up another important point to me about there is a difference, and I think an important distinction between fighting for and fighting against. Okay? So I don't think it's very helpful. Let's say, you know, you're reflecting on your experience with diet culture. You're reflecting on how you internalize it and the things that you've done and the way that you've behaved in your own relationship with yourself and your body. All of that. And it makes you angry. And this is like module 2 of the program. If you've been through it, you know, first you have to get mad. First you have to get mad, and you have to notice that this isn't working, and potentially there is some, you know, cognitive dissonance around what you've done. And now you're taking responsibility and saying, I don't want to do that anymore. And it makes you mad to think about the impact that all of this has had. All right, fine. But the point is, Anger. Let's go back to anger. Kristin Neff talks about there's destructive and there's constructive anger. What I think is not helpful anger is anger channeled into fighting against in some ways, okay? Because again, I hear what I'm saying and it sounds a little contradictory to literally what I just said, but stay with me. I don't think it's helpful to channel the anger into fighting against the system or fighting against the culture, or fighting against the paradigm, or whatever it is. Because that energy, if you take that anger and you channel it into fighting against, your fight is about the person on the other end. Your fight is about who you're fighting up against. Its focus is on the receiving end. You're fighting against. But you can have the same energy and the same anger and channel it into doing the same exact behaviors. It's not about what you're doing. It's about the energy with which you're doing it always. So if you take the energy of, your anger and that becomes your inspiration, your motivation to fight for yourself, fight for your freedom, fight for your healthy relationship with your body, fight for your potential, fight for your intentional weight loss, fight for your family, for your life, for your goals, if you fight for, now that's where I think it's very helpful. So if we're talking about, again, you want to free yourself, you want to free yourself from your limiting beliefs, you want to opt out of diet culture, I invite you to think about not fighting against what is and what's happened and what's out there. That again it's just not helpful. But if you think about fight for yourself, now again, we're talking about fierce self-compassion. We're talking about fierce self-compassion. You don't get to tell me what I'm capable of. You don't get to tell me what I can and can't do. You might be able to tell me what you can and can't do, or what you have and have not done, but you don't get to tell me what that is for me. So if the focus stays on you and where you want to go and what you want to be true for you, yeah, now we're talking. So again, it's like if you have a part of you that is self-protective and saying, no, I will not ever go back on a diet again. No, that was harmful. It's very likely that, again, that is the fierce self-compassion. And I think we can look at that as, or through the lens of, you're fighting for yourself. You're fighting for your recovery. You're fighting for your freedom. You get to fight for you. Now, in contrast, this is, again, just a personal opinion, that I think anti-diet culture, the anti-diet movement, is not so much about fighting for ourselves. It's about fighting against. It's about fighting against diet culture. It's rooted in this reaction of, burn it all down energy, which again is super valid. The anger is valid, but I think that it misses reconnecting you to you. It just kind of, again, swung the pendulum a bit. But this is why, and this is where the next episode will go, is I think when it comes to anti-diet kind of messaging, there's this belief that if you are in that kind of place of anti-dieting, let's say, like the fuck it diet, that is compassion. Because, again, dieting was so painful and harmful that for you to reject all of that is compassionate, which is valid, and it makes sense that we think that. But then the way that it, again, manifests for a lot of people is that it becomes actually self-neglect. I'm not paying attention to what I eat, which means I'm not taking responsibility for how I feed myself, which ultimately becomes for a lot of people just a self-neglect. That's not compassion. You not taking responsibility for the role you play in your own suffering, like I said last time, with food or otherwise, is not compassionate. So first, we just need to get clear about that. That is, when we talk about what compassion is and isn't, if you are in relationship with food and your body and health that is ultimately denial and avoidance, it's skipping over that first step of fear, self-compassion, which is we're just not looking at it. We're not telling the truth about it. We're in neglect. And through the lens of reparenting, inner child, inner parent, it's like a parent that's saying, I don't want to deal with this. You have to feed yourself. I have to feed myself every day. I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to look at that. I don't want to pay attention to that. I don't want to be responsible for this. And again, when it comes to radical acceptance around something like this, super valid. Super valid. You don't want to deal with this? Neither do I. You don't want to have to be responsible for this? Neither do I. I know it. I see you. I hear you. That is valid. You don't have to want it. But you refusing to take responsibility for your health, you refusing to take responsibility for the way you feed yourself and show up and move and sleep and stress relief and connect and whatever, you refusing to take responsibility for yourself is the reason very often that change is not happening, that you're not seeing the change that you want to see. And so that's why we have to look at it is compassionate. It is fiercely compassionate to say, my health is my responsibility. My diet is my responsibility. My movement is my responsibility. My life is my responsibility. That's compassion, because what you're doing is coming out of neglect. So on one hand, I think diet culture is abuse, and I think anti-diet culture is neglect. And I do think that if we take the best and leave the rest from both sides, that it is very possible to arrive at the middle of the pendulum where there is awareness and mindfulness and intention, where you are conscious, you are taking responsibility, you are awake, and you are also loving, compassionate, empathetic. You are showing up in an integration of masculine and feminine, of tenderness and fierceness, and that is possible, especially if what you want is intentional weight loss that is going to be sustainable. So on that note, the last thing that I'm going to leave you with today is a quote by Elizabeth Gilbert, who I absolutely love so, so much. The quote is, I've never seen any life transformation that didn't begin with the person in question finally getting sick of their own bullshit. One more time. I've never seen any life transformation that didn't begin with the person in question finally getting sick of their own bullshit. Here's why I love this so much and why I'm saying this to you right now. It is a myth that if you look at yourself and your own behaviors and the way that you're showing up in your life, and you say to yourself, I'm sick of this. I'm sick of your bullshit. that it can feel or be perceived as judgmental or mean or cruel, and that's not what it is. It is fierce self-compassion to look at ourselves and our own stuff and say lovingly, from a place of taking ownership and responsibility, I am sick of my own shit. I need to do something different. This isn't working for me anymore. The beginning of this quote is, I've never seen any life transformation that didn't begin with that, right? That's what this is all about. Transformation begins with the radical acceptance of what is. And sometimes the radical acceptance of what is I'm fucking around. And this isn't who I want to be. This isn't how I want to behave. This isn't how I want my life to go. I need to get sick of my own shit before I'm motivated to show up and do something different. And that's okay. And what I'm saying to you is it's very compassionate. It's very loving for you to tell the truth that you're not showing up as the person you want to be. You're not embodying the person you want to be. Your life doesn't look the way you want it to. That's compassion. So again, you get to practice. You get to practice this. If you are here for it, if you are willing to accept the challenge of really embodying this, you get to practice telling the truth to yourself, tender self-compassion, mindfulness, and fierce self-compassion, mindfulness, just really allowing yourself to tell the truth, let yourself feel how you feel. Tell yourself, if it's true for you, that, it's okay for you to be sick of your own bullshit. That's where transformation begins. It's okay. So, that, like I said, I think I'm getting a little bit better about organizing all of my thoughts, because that is where I'm going to leave it. I'm going to practice my own discipline right now to leave it there, because I'm looking at what I want to talk about next, but I'm just going to have to be patient. So that's that. That is this chapter of things. Next, we're going to talk about stages of change, how to actually move through some changes, how this relates to intentional weight loss, and what it looks like to really, again, integrate not just the energies of tender and fierce self-compassion, but the behaviors, the changes, and all of the other follow-up thoughts that I might have on this episode. So again, as always, there's going to be at least a handful of more of these questions, feedback, thoughts, feelings, reactions. Let me know. LisaSchlossberg@gmail.com. And just another reminder that I am now, especially if you're listening to this in real time, by the time this comes out, I am taking one-on-one clients. So the show notes will have the link for that if you're interested in working together. And I will see you next time. So much love. Mwah.